Good evening, families. It is Wednesday, May 5th. We are in part two of our series, Not So With You, where we're kind of shaking up some of the commonly held views and ideas on things like power, which is what we talked about last week, words, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, energy, which we'll talk about next week, and influence, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks. So, like I said last week, we looked at the effects of power and how Jesus really challenged us to use our power not so much to control other people, but to serve other people. Tonight, I'm just going to warn you, tonight's lesson is going to be a little deeper because we are talking about words. And I don't know what the percentage is of our group that has been bullied. I also don't know what percentage of our group has been a bully. There's a website where I get a lot of these facts from. It is stopbullying.org. And it says between 1 in 4 and 1 in 3, so roughly anywhere between 25 to 33% of students have been bullied. That website defines bullying as unwanted aggressive behavior, observed or perceived power imbalance, and repetition of behaviors or high likelihood of repetition. So, according to the website stopbullying.org, most bullying happens in middle school. The most common types are verbal and social bullying. And I'm going to share a story. I told you we're going to get deep. I'm going to share an example of the side effects of bullying. This is the story of Sadie Riggs. And I'm going to read the excerpt from the article, and I will have the article available in the description box along, probably right before all the questions and things if you want to read the article in full. But it is the story of a 15-year-old named Sadie Riggs. And it says, Sadie Riggs loved helping others. The bubbly 15-year-old dreamed of becoming a firefighter, a lawyer, or a veterinarian. She was passionate about drawing and spending time outside with her dogs in her small town of Bedford, Pennsylvania, about 100 miles east of Pittsburgh. Sadie had overcome challenges before. Her biological mom, a drug addict, abandoned her when she was little. But in her final year of life, the high school freshman's biggest obstacle was bullying from her peers. The kids started making fun of her for her red hair and braces, said Sarah Smith, the aunt whom Sadie lived with. The kids told her only devils had red hair. The taunting started early in the school hallways but became inescapable. Sadie was tormented on Facebook, Instagram, and a messaging platform called Kik, where classmates would tell her to kill herself. I went to the police. I went to the school. I even contacted Instagram headquarters, and they didn't do anything about it, her aunt said. So finally, I smashed her phone. I broke it in half because she was bawling every day and I couldn't take it anymore. But the sad news is the bullying had already taken its toll because on June 19th, barely a week after her aunt took her phone, Sadie took her life. As I forewarned you, tonight's lesson would be a little heavier. And I'm sorry for sharing that story. But I did it for a reason. And I did it to get your attention. Because our words matter. If you truly think about it, they have unimaginable and in some ways unlimited power. For Sadie, a life was lost and what was to blame was other people's words. So I want to take a moment to just stress the importance of your life. And I say we, and I'm meaning we as this church, we as this leadership, believe that God made you and wants you to take his part in his work in this world. Your life matters. And so if anyone is thinking about suicide or has a plan for that, please, I beg you to come and talk to someone. Talk to me, talk to another trusted adult, talk to a parent, teacher, counselor, but please speak up on your behalf, because your life matters to us. And I hope you know that we would fight for that. Kind of on the topic, one of my least favorite statements, things that we say, or sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. And I think I hate it because, one, we all know that's a lie. If a stick, I'm certain, is big enough, it could probably break our bones. Stones can probably do that. But words can break our heart, it can break our spirit, it can break our confidence, and it can really destroy our sense of worth. So as we talked about last week in the words of Jesus, and Jesus telling his disciples, not so with you, when Jesus noticed his followers stuck in an unhealthy pattern of the world, he speaks directly to them and he tells them, not so with you. And the way of Jesus really invites us to use our power, our words, our energy, our influence differently than our culture does, differently than the crowd does. You may be accustomed to hearing and speaking words that target and tear others apart. But today, hopefully, I'm offering you a better way to talk, to speak, to use our words, in your world. So, as you'll find out, it's not an easier way, but it is a more mature way. Because of how our brains are wired, words and relationships really shape our brain, which in turn shapes our thoughts, our attitudes, our actions, our identity, and really our view of ourselves. And I don't really have to give you any more examples of the negative effects of our words, but our words also have an incredible power to help people. Imagine with me for a second, and this is going to kind of lead into the story that we're going to talk about tonight, and I will warn you, we're going to jump around to a bunch of different scriptures. But if God came to you one day and said, ask for whatever you want me to give you, how would you respond? And it leads up to what we're going to talk about. We're going to be in the Old Testament tonight. Like I said, we're going to be in the New Testament as well. But where we're going to start is 1 Kings chapter 3, starting in verse 7. Many of us know this story. But in the Old Testament, there's a story where this interaction actually happens. And we believe that the Bible, of course, is a collection of writings and stories and history that took place with real people in real places in real time. And so God appears to a king. And the king's name is Solomon. And he shows up in a dream and he asks him, what do you want me to give you? And Solomon really could have asked for anything. He could have asked for wealth beyond measure. He could have asked for power beyond limit. He could have asked for more wishes. But he asked for wisdom. And so 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 7 says this, now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? Wisdom. The ability to know what to do and how to do it. And we are fortunate of a collection of Solomon's wisdom in a book called Proverbs. So if Solomon were writing in the digital age, these would have been perfect probably for Twitter. And he wrote about almost every area and aspect of life, including money, time, relationships, work, and words. In fact, when students really want to read the Bible, I'm telling you, you can start at the beginning, but if you really want, Proverbs is one of the first books I have them read. So here's what Solomon says. I told you we're going to bounce around. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. He says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." So it's pretty clear. Our words can bring life or death into those around us. If you love life, your words are going to say it. But if you love death, that destruction, discouragement, disrespect, then we're probably going to know it by what you say, what you tweet, what you text. Because our words have incredible power. They can heal or they can hurt. They can help, they can harm. They could build you up, they could break you down. Our words have the power to shape the lives of those around us, and our words really have the chance to shape our reputation. Last week I talked about maturity, and I described it as, really what it is and what it looks like. So to review, maturity is more than just age, height, skill. True maturity is about your character. It's about who we are as people. As I'm going to say all series long, maturity is displayed in the ways that we use our power and our words. Next week, our energy. The week after that, our influence. So I told you we're going to jump around a lot. We're about to go into the book of James in the New Testament. So James, Jesus' half-brother, wrote a part of the New Testament in the Bible. And just like Solomon, it is full of wisdom for us today, especially in the area of how we use our words. So here's what James has to say about power with the words that we speak. And it's in James chapter 3, starting in verse 5. I'm going to read verse 5 and 6. "The tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell." Skipping down to verse 9, it says, "With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be." Did you see how James ended that last verse? This should not be. Or in Jesus' words, his brother, not so with you. King Solomon and James both knew the power of words, and hopefully you do too. Because you've probably been burned by someone's words, and let's face it, you've probably burned someone with yours. Those who love life and those who love death will eat its fruit. We are mature when we use our words not to devalue someone else, but to honor someone else. Not to hurt someone else, but to heal someone else. Not to harm, but to help. And please, not to break down, but to build people up. This is especially true by the way we talk about other people. At no time should we belittle, verbally assault, or abuse, or make fun of anyone, whether it's their gender, their looks, their identity, because according to James, they are created in the image of God and worthy of the highest value that you could give someone. James 3, verse 9, "With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who've been made in God's likeness." As people created in the image of God, it doesn't make sense to devalue another person who is an image bearer. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, it says, "Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." When we look at the life of Jesus, you see a man who used his words to do exactly what this verse says. So like I said, I'm going to jump around to a few verses here. In the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, Jesus says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." In a very uncomfortable situation, in John chapter 8, verse 11, Jesus says, "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." And on the cross, in Luke 23, verse 34, it says, Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." So take a moment to review the words that you use. What is coming out of your mouth? What causes you to say what you say? And do your words benefit those who listen? God forgives you for the words that you've used and the words that you're known for because of what Jesus did on the cross. Jesus rose from the dead to give us victory over the words of death and hell that Solomon and James wrote about, so we could speak words of life like Jesus did. Because our words are very powerful, and Jesus offers us a better way to use our words. So hopefully here's a couple of ways to begin applying today's message in your life. There's about 3 things. The first one is think before you speak. Think about what you're going to say. Because a lot of times we say our words without really thinking. I do that a lot. But you don't have to cuss or belittle someone to make a point. Sharing your feelings, encouraging others, telling someone other than your parents or your girlfriend or your boyfriend that you love them is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a demonstration of maturity. Very few people can control their tongues. But when you think before you speak, you might become one of them, one of the wise and mature people. And the second one is watch your words. This is really less about censoring or filtering your words, and it's more about actually just watching what your words do to people. Because if you spend some time really studying the life of Jesus, you'll notice that his words bring hope and joy to people. So what are your words doing to the emotions and identity of other people? You know the influence of words looks like in someone's life. So are your words crushing people or discouraging others, or are they leaving people hopeful and encouraged? And the last thing is say I'm sorry. It's simple. Because saying I'm sorry might be exactly what someone needs to hear. I've heard this before, and it says our words are like wind. They can send us sailing or they can send us crashing down. And if you remember Sadie's story, there may never be a news article about the way we encourage and honor one another. But what if your school, what if, our church, what if our youth group, our group of friends never had a story like Sadie's because we used our words to speak up for those being bullied, to speak up for those being abused, or to speak up for those who are being devalued. And these are family lessons. So what would your home look like if you're encouraging each other as a family? What would our schools look like? What would your job look like? What would our church look like? What would our group look like? Let's be the type of people who use our words not to devalue, but to honor. I'm sorry for such a heavy lesson. Um, I hope that this is beneficial because I think everybody has gotten bogged down and discouraged by other people's words. And let's be real, we've discouraged other people by our words. We might have even done that as a family to each other. So I really hope that you guys will enjoy the questions that will be asked. There is a little exercise for you to do as well. If you want to do that, feel free. So, anyways, next week we are going to talk about how we use our energy, to really influence other people around us and to be those people that Jesus is calling us to be. So, I hope you guys will be here next week for that. For those of you that are going to be here this Sunday, can't wait to see you Sunday. For those of you that are still, at home and I hope that these are a blessing to you, and I can't wait to see you again. And I'll see you next time.